So we have a great program today, like I mentioned, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Ursula to introduce our speaker and guest today.
Okay, thank you. So our guest is Dr. Ogden. She started with Samaritan 14 years ago as an emergency medicine physician at North Lincoln Hospital. In 2014, she became the Chief Operating Officer at North Lincoln. In 2015, she became the Chief Executive Officer at that hospital. Dr. Ogden did such a great job at North Lincoln. She was named CEO at Samaritan Pacific Communities Hospital in June of 2017. She's a member of the Rotary Club in Lincoln City and lives in Lincoln City with her husband, William. And in case you're wondering, when you hear her start talking, what her accent is, she's from South Georgia and North Florida. Welcome, Dr. Ogden.
Thank you so much, Ursula, and thanks to everyone for having me as a guest. I always love to come and talk with my fellow Rotarians, but also just keep you informed. There's so much going on, especially with our hospitals and healthcare, and so it's so nice to talk with you in person. So Ursula indicated that one of those things that you might want to know most about was to get a vaccine update of really what's happening locally. And then also I'd like to talk to you about our Grow Our Own Doctors program, our rural residency program that is starting up, and it is for real. So I will share my screen if that works for you, and then we will make sure that you can see it. And I will start my slideshow. Let me know if you are not. Okay, so the first thing I'd just like to talk a little bit about the vaccine, actually vaccines. We've got 3 out there now. And so let's talk a little bit about the generics of vaccine hesitancy, timelines to develop them, the different types of vaccines, a little bit about their safety and efficacy, side effects, a bit about multi-dose versus single dose, because now we have a little bit of all of that, and how the vaccination program in Lincoln County is going, some of the issues we faced, and then last but not least, our family medicine rural residency track training program for physicians. So let's hop right into it. One of the things that that has come out when we talk to people about their trust in a vaccine is that they say the first ones, the Pfizer and the Mrna, these are mRNA vaccines. We don't know about those. This is the first time we've seen them, and boy, this happened really fast. It happened too fast, and we just don't trust the science. But what I wanted to do was show you these graphics. The top graphic shows you the normal process that a vaccine goes through for its approval, from design and exploratory preclinical studies all the way to the end to large-scale production and distribution. And yes, it typically takes 15 years or longer. But if you look at the bottom, this is what we actually went through with the SARS-CoV-2 vaccine development. And that's the vaccine against COVID-19. So one of the reasons that we were able to shorten that time frame from 10 months to 1.5 years in total was, if you look down at the very bottom in tiny, tiny print, it says pre-existing from SARS-CoV and MERS-CoV. Those were the previous SARS and MERS outbreaks that occurred around the world in years past. You know, sometimes we're looking at 10 years ago. Well, we started, I say we, the scientists of the world started developing a vaccine against those coronavirus types way back then. And they were looking at mRNA, the type of vaccine that we see developed by Pfizer and Mrna, as the way to do that. So what they did was they took this years and years and years and years of research and were able to just jump right in with it when we saw that we had a real problem worldwide. And the other things that happen that you may not be aware of is the amount of cooperation between different countries, between private and public partnerships, between, and you see this, universities teaming up with drug companies. It is unlike it's ever happened before. And so we really were able to really condense that down to this time frame. But you'll see all the parts are still there. We still had to verify the safety. We still had to go through the phased clinical trials. We still had to go through all the approval processes. We just could do it because of the leg up that our scientists already had. So again, years and years of prior work on that. If we look at mRNA vaccines in particular, how do they work? Just so you know. So basically, there's a synthetic version of a part of the virus's genetic code. And that is what we are putting in the vaccine. And it tells our cells to build the little protein that goes on the outside of the virus. And you've seen a picture of the virus itself, a round ball with these pointy little spiky things all on the outside of it. Well, this mRNA vaccine tells your cells to build those spike proteins, those little sticky things on the outside. And then when your body builds those things, then it also can build antibodies against them. So the next time it sees it in real life, then it has the antibodies already to fight that. So that's how the mRNA vaccine works. But now we have another type of vaccine because our Johnson & Johnson vaccine just got approved. Now the Johnson & Johnson vaccine uses an adenovirus type of vector, right? And so what you see in that illustration here is that coronavirus particle that with the spike proteins all over it. We talked about the last line there, the mRNA type of vaccine, and you see that how the body produces that, that spike protein. But in the Johnson & Johnson variety, they actually purify the spike protein. They put it in a vector of the adenovirus, which is basically the common cold. They just make the common cold, they pare it down so it's hardly a detectable cold. You know those really nice colds that you don't even mind having, or you don't even know you have. So they put that into that vector, and then it goes in and infects your cells, and it carries along the instructions to produce the spike protein. And so that's how it gets into your body versus an mRNA way that goes into your cells. This is actually another harmless virus getting into your cells and then producing the spike protein. But you see in all these different ways, the ultimate goal is to produce the spike protein that then allows your body to produce antibodies, or the fighters that fight against the virus when it sees it for real. Okay, so if we look at the safety aspects of these vaccines, we've got two mRNA vaccines on the market now, both Pfizer, BioNTech, and Mrna. Both of them were approved for FDA emergency authorization in December. Both of them had thousands and thousands and thousands of participants in those trials that we talked about. They're coming in really high in the efficacy category, but I want you to pay attention to something, because we've got to get pretty good at looking at how things were judged, because as you'll find as other vaccines come out, they're judged differently, and people want to pit one vaccine against another and tell me which one is the best, tell me which one I should be getting. But they don't always have the same measure of how they do what they do. So these were judged against symptomatic disease. Did people get any kind of COVID that gave them symptoms? And so if we look at the cases that happened in all these thousands and thousands of people, we had 170 cases, 162 in the placebo group and 8 in the vaccine group in the Pfizer study. And then severe disease, there were 10 people who got severe COVID in the Pfizer group, with 9 being in the placebo group and 1 being in the vaccine group. So if we just continue to look at Pfizer, Pfizer does take 2 doses to be most effective, and those are given 21 days apart, or at least 17 days apart. We can go back it up at least to that, but ideally 21 days apart there. They did not receive federal funding, but of course they are receiving lots of federal dollars to be purchased. The downside is that it takes ultra cold freezers, like beyond our normal freezer levels, to store this. One thing I added as well, as we learn more and more about the mutated viruses that are coming out of Great Britain and South Africa, those are the ones that we're hearing about, but also there's a mutated version coming out of California and one out of Brazil. We're studying the current vaccines against these viral mutations, and the way they're mutating is they're mutating to have increased transmissibility, meaning the ability for you to infect someone else more readily, and then also severity, meaning are you going to get sicker if you get that variant? So we are finding in most cases that both of those scenarios are true with these mutations. And so with Pfizer, we are seeing that it is somewhat effective against the British variant. We just don't know right now against the South African variant, and we don't have any other information yet against the California or Brazilian variant. With Moderna, if we look again, I won't go through those same studies of the cases and severe disease, but you can see it's very close. I mean, again, thousands and thousands of people tested, and these are the outcomes. The number of doses are 2 with that as well to get optimum coverage, but they are 28 days apart that you take the Moderna shots. Moderna was federally funded from the beginning, and storage temperature is in a normal freezer. So it gives us a little bit more flexibility. We don't have to buy special freezers to store it. And we're just not sure if it's good against the viral mutants at this point. Maybe, and study is ongoing. Now let's look at this Johnson & Johnson that was just approved on February 27th by the FDA. Again, thousands and thousands of people, very similar type of studies there. But you know, you're hearing and you're seeing in the news a lot of information about the efficacy being different. Okay, here's where we need to get really smart, because if we look at it overall, you may have even seen 66%. 66% is worldwide. 72% efficacy is in the United States, and 86% efficacy against severe disease. That's getting pretty darn close to what we see with Moderna and Pfizer. So again, what are your endpoints here? And so don't let anyone feed you a line that one vaccine is better than another, because they're very, very close. And the other thing I'd like to say is we get so delighted when our flu vaccines are 50% efficacious in any year. We get so excited because we've identified the right variant of flu that is circulating, and we have this great, amazing, leg up on fighting flu that year. And we're getting all picky if our COVID vaccine is 86% efficacious versus 94% efficacious. You see what I'm bringing up is basically we're applying rules to the COVID vaccine that we don't apply to anything else in life. So all of these vaccines are really good. The one thing we really love about Johnson & Johnson, though, is it's one dose. And so you'll hear there's a little marketing thing. It's one and done. So you will hear that marketing line go out. It also was federally funded. The really nice thing is we can store this at refrigerated temperatures. We don't have to have special freezers or any freezers at all. And here's the really good news, is we're looking at this and seeing that it does cover these variants. And so while we might find that the others also cover the variants, we know for sure with J&J that we are getting good coverage with both the British and the South African variants. So side effects, these are typically what you see with most of your flu shots or any sort of prior virus. Shingle shots can give you very similar types of side effects. The typical things are local pain, redness, and swelling at the site, but you also can get fever, chills, nausea, vomiting, even some diarrhea and GI upset, headache, fatigue, muscle aches. But here's the really neat thing. This is just a small percentage of people who ever have these. And it falls somewhere between the amount of people that get side effects from the flu vaccine and the amount of people that get side effects from the shingles vaccine, because the shingles vaccine actually has a higher percentage of people who have side effects than even the COVID vaccines. So again, Pfizer and Moderna have this, somewhere in the single digit sort of span for people who have any sort of I won't say more harsh, but greater than mild, maybe moderate side effect symptoms. But here's the other nice thing with Johnson & Johnson, all the same common side effects, but noticeably milder than Pfizer and Moderna. So again, what are you comparing when you're saying, one vaccine is better than another? Every vaccine has its pros and cons. And I think I want to say the most important thing is that we all are smart enough to say that if we're offered any of them, we say, yes, please. Yes, yes, please. May I have that one? And not get all wrapped up in how one may have very minor differences from another. Okay, so multi-dose versus single dose. This is becoming a delight, but also a problem. So it's delightful that we have vaccine to give to people, but this just makes confusion even more around our vaccination options. It is a headache and a half to schedule people twice, especially every single person in the United States to come and get their vaccine. Side effects sometimes deter individuals from coming back and getting their second dose. They're like, I didn't like how that made me feel, or I didn't like the redness on my arm, so I'm not gonna come and get my second one. Whereas if we just had if they had taken the one dose, they would have been maximally, have maximal efficacious use there. And we really don't know yet how successful we're gonna be with these 2 doses overall. So it's a very interesting vaccination procedure here. How are we doing with handing out vaccines? And as you all are very well aware, we have a program to do so. And so we've already seen healthcare workers, long-term facility residents and employees there, first responders, all types of healthcare professionals go through their vaccination wave. Educators were also prioritized and put very high. So we've seen educators come through. We're seeing now people who are in age groups all the way down to 65 now. And they have been, called in order, come. But what we will see next is we will see people at significantly higher risk of severe COVID-19 illness, people who have comorbidities. We'll see our essential workers be called, and then gradually we'll get down to the general population. So as you can imagine, the reason why we're doing this is trying to identify the people who have the highest risk of coming in contact with COVID, and then the highest rate of having something really bad happen to them. And this is the best determination between science and government that has come out with this phased approach. And so we just have to be aware of who's being called and when, so that people can get signed up and go through that. So how are we doing it in Lincoln County? We are having mass vaccination clinics by and large, but let me tell you some of our other events that we're organizing. And Lincoln County is the head of this, but it's taking all of us who work as healthcare providers to really make this work. So Lincoln County has developed at the fairgrounds a mass vaccination site. Samaritan consulted with the clinical aspect of setting up these clinics. And we all came together and operationalized a way to get about 600 people through in a normal sort of 9 to 4-ish day. Now we have this done, and our big problem heretofore has been vaccine supply, right? Where we've even scheduled some clinics and had to cancel them because we did not have the supplies coming the way we thought. Weather has impacted us, winter weather. Lots of things has gotten in the way of us getting vaccine, but that's getting smoothed out. So we're seeing that we're more reliably going to be able to schedule these events, but this doesn't handle everybody. It doesn't tackle people who have difficulty with technology, although we do have call centers set up at both the county and even with Samaritan to handle people who have no other way of signing up, who just do not do technology or have access to technology for whatever reason. We also understand that this is privileging those who have transportation and can get there. And so we're having our home health folks go out and do vaccinations, in people's homes. Also, our EMS and fire folks, we just cannot throw enough kudos their way. They went out and did all the long-term care facilities on site, because the federal program that you may have heard of only really covered our skilled nursing facility, Avamere, in the county, and the remainder of the assisted care facilities were really left out. So kudos to North Lincoln Fire, Newport Fire, and Pac West. They took care of all of those places on site. Our Lakeview, Ocean View, Sea Air, you name it, they went out and they did it on site. They're also doing little firehouse, and I say little firehouse, they get like 150 people through, at their events at firehouses all up and down our coast. So they're really trying to help tackle those people who maybe can't get out of their community and can't get all the way to Newport. But the really important part of the Newport mass vaccination clinic is just the amount of people we can get through, right? We are already over somewhere between like 15 and 17% of our population now has been vaccinated. And we are so far ahead of some other counties in our state. And it's because of this level of cooperation and everyone just saying yes. Now what we're faced with is way more vaccine. And so you will see way more clinics because we are going into surge vaccination types of plans. So Samaritan will start to have its own clinics, especially on the weekends, and you'll just see longer clinic days at our mass vaccination sites and more days added on. So people will be taken care of very quickly. And then people right now most people are aware, if their priority group is being called, that they can get on a wait list. And you might say, well, how helpful is that wait list? How long is it going to take you to get through that wait list? Well, at the rate of doing 600 a day, and we only have 28,000 to do in total, because how we got there was, our 48,000 that are in the county minus 8,000 pediatrics who can't accept the shot. Divide that by the 70% that we think will accept it, and we've got 28,000. Okay, so we're already chipping away at that to the tune of every day we have one of these, we can get through 600 people at least. And then if the smaller events are going on, maybe we have an 800 person day. We're getting mighty close to tackling almost 1,000 people a day every time we have one of these events. And so you can see that wait list is getting eaten up very quickly. Even yesterday, after we did our 600, we were able to draw up 44 additional shots by doing very careful measurements with very tiny syringes. And we were able to call 44 people off the wait list and say, can you be here in the next half hour? We have a present for you. And boy, we made 44 additional people super happy. So it was a great day. So let me just run through just a few of the issues that we've seen problems with shipping. The complexities, as we discussed, if something has to be shipped in an ultra cold scenario on dry ice, that's just a nightmare. The distribution from the state, we have as a county, you may be very aware that we all signed a letter in protest of how we were seeing distribution going from the county, from the state to the counties. We felt that it favored the urban environments. And so we let our displeasure be known. And we think that that may have a lot to do with our continued distribution and getting what we're asking for, because we're very vocal. We are a very vocal lot. And then you may have heard about the federal stockpile that didn't exist. That was a big letdown because we really thought we were going to get some floods of vaccine, but that didn't happen. We were very disappointed in the beginning that all of this vaccine came with no instructions other than a CDC website and some clinical advice on how to administer this, but it has been tough. Every county, every public health department, every hospital trying to figure out how to do this from scratch and not having a guidebook on how to do so. So I am, again, very proud of our county and everything they've done, all the partners. Supplies were an issue that's becoming a little bit better. There were some times when, as hospitals, we had to shift supplies of syringes and needles around amongst ourselves because we even had vaccine, but maybe we didn't have anything to give it in. So, we have seen a lot of cooperation go around, and that's sort of leveling out because now we are actually getting as many supplies as there are vaccines in the bottles. The tough part happened whenever we were pulling more vaccine than expected out of some of the bottles, but they didn't ship the syringes and needles to match. And I think I've talked about lack of guidance, but one more thing I want to say about lack of resources. Up until probably December, our public health departments had no additional funding to do what they've done. They were making this stuff up as they went. They have done a phenomenal job by and large across the state, but we just really have to throw some kudos at Lincoln County Public Health and the jobs that they have done. They are not sleeping, and it's not going to get any better for a long time. And the biggest thing that we can do is support them and be great partners to them as we're all faced with no additional resources and no additional people to do the impossible, but yet we're doing it. It's happening. So let me talk last about our family medicine rural residency track program. This is a shifting gears, but as we're faced with the pandemic, we're also faced with a doctor shortage that is coming up on us faster and faster. And we decided, much like our approach to vaccination, that we were going to be our own solution to what the problems we had in front of us and not rely on anyone else. And so what we have developed with grant funding from both national and state sources and the help of the Family Medicine Residency Program out of Corvallis, we have designed our own rural residency track program where we're going to train 1 to 3 residents. And these are doctors who have received their MD or DO, but then have to go through residency training, that specialty training in family medicine. We are going to accept 1 to 3 of them per year, ideally 2. We think that's just a magic number and a happy number for them to work together. We expect our site accreditation. They've already been on site and looked at our program. It will be based out of Newport. And we've already had that site inspection done. We expect that accreditation May 1st. That will allow us to begin interviewing for residents. And again, this is a rural program, so we will only be interviewing people who are interested in training in family medicine in a rural setting. So our program, we would interview this summer. Our program would start in the summer of 2022. So they interview a year ahead of time. And they start in Corvallis and Portland, and they spend a year in urban and suburban areas, learning high volume things and things in big ICUs that maybe they can't learn on the coast. But then their last 2 years will be spent on the coast exclusively in a curriculum that we have designed utilizing both of our schools and all of our coastal clinics so that they have a rich learning environment. And then we will be able to teach them exactly what we think they ought to know in our rural environment. And we know historically 60% of residents stay where they are trained. This is a historical number, and we think that will be even higher with rural trained residents. They want to be in a rural area, they're training in a rural area. And so our hope is that we graduate 2 family medicine doctors each year, and that we will keep 2 family medicine doctors each year in our area. And so now in preparation for that program, we are hiring additional faculty, a director and an assistant director. So all of that is going on in the background of this, and we just could not be more pleased because we are right on time and right on track. So with that, I will stop because I imagine that you guys have some questions.
There is a question in the chat from Raymond. Says it says, what do you know about South San Francisco-based Vaxart, Vaxart, coming from San Francisco? I'm aware of the small tablet for the COVID vaccine, just completed early stage results with promising, with promising results. However, neutralizing antibodies were not detected in volunteers after 1 dose. The company expects phase 2 and phase 3 studies to be completed by early 2022. Do you know anything about that program?
I can already say you know way more than I do. The issue here is that when people first started, and it's gotten even worse, when people first started developing vaccines, we saw about 160 different efforts going on at any one time. We've seen people drop out of that. We've seen people come into it with different ideas. And really, I don't even try to keep up with it until it gets to the point where it's at a level of sort of FDA approval. We really think that it's going to go to market because, wow, there's so many, I would say so many testing options that are either have been developed or in development, as well as we'll see vaccines and even medications. We treat COVID now so differently than we did when this pandemic first started. So even the medications we use are so different. So, wow, I'm impressed that that you are keeping up with anything that amazingly. So let us know if it should be an investment opportunity, because that's what I'm thinking about. If anything can be made to work in a pill form, that would be awesome.
Leslie?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. What do you think accounts for the huge decrease in the normal flu vaccine? I was wondering, is it because the COVID is much more virulent, or is it also because people are at home and masking up, or both?
So you're talking about our rates of influenza that we're experiencing this year? Just being nil? Yeah. Actually, we're seeing that with a variety of respiratory diseases. I've been talking to pediatricians across Oregon who are saying that respiratory syncytial virus, otherwise known as RSV, is non-existent in our pediatric population. And it's normally the thing that gives kids that snotty, nasty, coughy stuff that ends them up in the emergency department. Actually, a lot of times an otherwise healthy kid, RSV will send them to us. We are seeing none of RSV. We're seeing virtually no influenza. And so our guess is, number one, we had a huge vaccine push for get your flu vaccine, get your flu vaccine. You know, gosh, you don't want flu on top of COVID. And so we did have a little bit higher vaccination rate, but also, gosh, the same things that keep COVID away from people are the same thing that keeps all respiratory illnesses away. So masking, social distancing, you know, not being out in public as much. We just don't have as much opportunity to exchange germs, basically. So that's what we're attributing it to, a little bit of both, this year, but really, I think the second that we said, all the precautions we're taking for COVID. Any other questions?
All right. Well, thank you, Dr.
I have a question,
Oh,
Dr.
sorry.
Ogden.
Go ahead, Keith.
Yeah, and these deciding which virus or which vaccine to take, if you have a compromised immune system, is one better than the other? If you're taking medicine to suppress your immune system, is one vaccine better than the other? And can you designate if it, in fact, it is?
Well, the problem with a compromised is all of these vaccines work to get your body, your immune system, to make antibodies. So if you have any compromise to that, then you're not going to have such a great immune response. You're not going to make antibodies as much, and the vaccine just isn't going to be as good for you as it may be for someone else. So no, what you're not going to find, at least that we know of, that one of these vaccines is going to be measurably different for you, because again, the mechanism is to get your body to do something, and the stable factor there is your body. And so so unfortunately, my father, as an example, has leukemia and takes chronic chemotherapy, and he took the vaccine, but we had a long discussion on how we're not even sure it had any benefit for him. But I'd rather have him have like a teeny tiny little benefit than none at all. And so, yeah,
Thank you.
definitely, you can get what you can get out of it, and we don't really even know how to measure that at this point.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Ogden. It was really timely information, important information, and that's exciting to hear about the residency program too. I hope that works well. Be nice to have some homegrown doctors here at the coast. So as you know, Rotary is committed to working hard to stop polio as well as now COVID. So as a thank you for joining us today, we're going to vaccinate 50 children against polio in your name, and hope you come back and see us again soon. Always great to have you on.